In a thunderous declaration that has set the African continent ablaze and sent imperialist powers into a tailspin, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's fearless revolutionary leader, has exposed the sinister threats facing the newly formed Alliance of Sahel States, AES, speaking at the historic raising of the AES flag and unveiling of its anthem, an event synchronized across Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. Traoré delivered a scorching rebuke of Western attempts to sabotage African unity, unbowed by relentless coup plots, assassination attempts, and daily imperialist bribes to fracture the AES. Traoré boldly proclaimed that the Confederation's vision of sovereignty and self-reliance is a mortal threat to those who have plundered Africa for centuries. Traoré minced no words as he exposed the imperialist agenda to undermine the AES, a confederation formed by Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger to assert their sovereignty and chart a path towards self-reliance. As you can see, this morning we have just raised the flag with the anthem of the AES Confederation, which is another step we are taking in our unity, he declared, his voice resonating with the conviction of a man who has stared down the barrel of imperialist aggression and refused to blink. This is not without difficulty because unity is hard, especially in Africa. It's difficult to unite, but it's the solution. We have to unite. Little by little, the AES continues on its merry way, despite all the difficulties and challenges ahead of us. But it was his piercing question that cut through the veil of diplomatic niceties. If I were naive, I would ask myself why the imperialists don't want this union. But I'm not naive, and I know why. It's the same question that those who still tend to sleep must ask themselves. Why don't they want us to unite? Why does Confederation scare or hurt some so much? These words, delivered with a blend of righteous indignation and steely resolve, were a direct challenge to the Western powers that have long exploited Africa's disunity to plunder its resources. Traoré's revelation that the AES is seen as a mortal threat to imperialist interests was not mere rhetoric. It was a clarion call to awaken the continent to the reality of its own power. The threats Traoré spoke of are not abstract. They are tangible, insidious, and relentless. We are approached every day by these imperialists to get one of the three to betray the others, he revealed, exposing the divide and conquer tactics that have been the hallmark of colonial and neo-colonial strategies in Africa for centuries. We have been confronted with this for a long time. Each time, these are the kinds of maneuvers that are there to get you out of the Confederacy. This should make us think. When we look at our relations with these imperialist countries, there is no friendship, there are only interests. People only come to us for their interests. We have to be well aware of that. Traoré's words were a stark reminder that the AES's unity is a direct challenge to the Western-dominated global order, which thrives on Africa's fragmentation and dependency. The Confederation's formation in July 2024, following a mutual defense pact signed in September 2023, has already reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the Sahel by withdrawing from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, in January 2025 and establishing their own confederation. Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger have declared their refusal to be pawns in the imperialist chess game. This bold move has provoked a fierce backlash, not only from Western powers, but also from African institutions and leaders who have failed to deliver on the promise of true independence. The threats Traoré alluded to are not mere speculation, they are documented realities. Since seizing power in a September 2022 coup, Traoré has faced a barrage of coup attempts, assassination plots, and destabilization efforts, all of which bear the fingerprints of imperialist interference. In April 2025, Burkina Faso's military junta announced it had foiled a major plot to overthrow Traoré, with plotters allegedly based in Ivory Coast. A staunch Western ally, Security Minister Mahamadou Sana revealed that the coup was orchestrated by current and former soldiers in coordination with terrorist leaders, with the explicit aim of sowing total chaos and placing Burkina Faso under the supervision of an international organization, a thinly veiled euphemism for Western control. This was not an isolated incident. Reports indicate that Traoré has survived at least 19 assassination attempts since coming to power, a staggering testament to the lengths to which imperialist forces will go to eliminate a leader who dares to challenge their hegemony. The parallels to the fate of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, assassinated in 1987 in a French-backed coup, are chilling. Traoré himself has acknowledged this history, vowing that what happened to Thomas Sankara will never happen again. His defiance in the face of such threats has only cemented his status as a symbol of resistance, not just in Burkina Faso but across the African diaspora. The imperialist playbook is clear: destabilize, divide, and dominate. Traoré's revelations about daily attempts to bribe or coerce one of the AES leaders into betraying the others echo historical tactics used to undermine African unity movements, from the assassination of Patrice Lumumba to the sabotage of Kwame Nkrumah's vision for a united Africa. The AES's refusal to succumb to these pressures has made it a lightning rod for Western criticism and covert operations. France, in particular, has been singled out by Traoré for its role in perpetuating neo-colonialism in the Sahel. His decision to expel French troops in 2023, followed by Mali and Niger's similar moves, sparked a wave of outrage from Paris, with President Emmanuel Macron accusing the AES leaders of ingratitude for rejecting France's so-called protection. But the threats extend beyond France. The United States, through its Africa Command, AFRICOM, has also been implicated in efforts to undermine Traoré's leadership. In April 2025, AFRICOM Commander General Michael Langley accused Traoré of misusing Burkina Faso's gold reserves to protect his regime, a statement that triggered widespread backlash across Africa and the diaspora. The timing of Langley's remarks, followed by his visit to Ivory Coast shortly after the foiled coup plot, fueled suspicions of US complicity in destabilization efforts. Langley's subsequent backtracking, praising great things going on in Burkina Faso under Traoré's leadership, was seen as a grudging acknowledgement of the global support Traoré commands. Why does the AES provoke such visceral fear among imperialist powers? Traoré's speech provided a clear answer. The Confederation's vision of self-reliance and resource sovereignty threatens the very foundation of Western dominance in Africa. Burkina Faso is very rich, Traoré declared, and it is these riches that are coveted, but these riches must benefit the Burkinabe. Nothing has yet begun in terms of the exploitation of natural resources and the remuneration of the masses. We can change the face of our country. We can leave this situation of underdevelopment and very quickly find ourselves in an emerging country. Burkina Faso, like its AES partners, is endowed with vast mineral wealth, including gold, zinc, manganese, copper, phosphate, and untapped reserves of diamonds and bauxite. Yet, for decades, these resources have been siphoned off by Western corporations, leaving the Sahel mired in poverty. Traoré's government has taken bold steps to reverse this trend, nationalizing 2 gold mines, halting the export of unrefined gold, and initiating the construction of a state-owned refinery capable of processing 150 tons of gold annually. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso's gold revenue has reportedly increased 18-fold, by ending exploitative deals with foreign companies. This model of resource nationalism is being replicated across the AES. Mali and Niger have also reviewed mining contracts with Western firms, prioritizing local control and value addition. The Confederation's plans for a common central bank and a new currency to replace the CFA franc, a colonial relic that ties West African economies to France, further underscore its commitment to economic sovereignty. These moves have sent shockwaves through Western capitals, which have relied on Africa's resources to fuel their economies for centuries. The AES's rejection of International Monetary Fund, IMF, and World Bank loans, which often come with crippling conditionalities, is a direct affront to the neoliberal order that has kept Africa in a state of perpetual dependency. Traoré's vision extends beyond economics. He emphasized the need for a space of total security in the Sahel, where resources can be exploited for the benefit of the masses rather than foreign corporations. The AES has already begun coordinating military efforts to combat jihadist insurgencies, which Traoré and his counterparts argue are fueled by Western-backed destabilization campaigns to justify foreign intervention. The creation of a unified 5,000-strong military unit to fight terrorism, announced in January 2025, is a testament to the Confederation's resolve to secure its territory without relying on Western military presence. The AES's success in forging a path towards sovereignty has exposed the glaring failures of regional institutions like ECOWAS and the African Union, AU, which have been criticized for their subservience to Western interests. Traoré's speech implicitly challenged these organizations to reflect on their inability to unite Africa against imperialism. "Why don't they want us to unite?" he asked, a question that could just as easily be directed at African leaders who have prioritized personal gain over continental progress. ECOWAS, in particular, has come under fire for its heavy-handed response to the coups in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. Following the 2023 coup in Niger, ECOWAS threatened military intervention to restore ousted President Mohamed Bazoum, a move backed by France and Nigeria, but fiercely opposed by the AES and much of the African public. The bloc's imposition of severe trade sanctions and border closures on the three countries further alienated them, prompting their formal withdrawal in January 2025. Critics argue that ECOWAS's actions were less about defending democracy than about preserving a regional order that serves Western interests. The AU, too, has been criticized for its inaction in the face of Africa's challenges. While the AU has paid lip service to the ideals of Pan-Africanism, it has failed to deliver tangible solutions to the continent's security, economic, and political crises. The AES's rapid progress in less than 2 years, establishing a confederation, launching a new passport, and coordinating anti-terrorism efforts, stands in stark contrast to the AU's decades of bureaucratic inertia. This contrast has not gone unnoticed, with many young Africans hailing Traoré, Assimi Goïta, and Abdourahmane Tiani as the true torchbearers of African unity. The failure of ECOWAS and the AU has left these institutions grappling with a crisis of legitimacy. ECOWAS, once seen as a beacon of regional integration, is now viewed by many as a tool of Western imperialism, particularly after its alignment with France and Nigeria's threats against Niger. The AU suspension of the AES countries from its membership has further deepened the divide, reinforcing perceptions that it prioritizes protocol over progress. These organizations are undoubtedly stung by the AES's success, which exposes their inability to address the aspirations of Africa's youth, who make up the majority of the continent's population. Traoré's speech also shone a spotlight on the complicity of some African leaders in perpetuating imperialist agendas. His revelation that imperialists are constantly seeking to bribe or coerce AES leaders into betraying their allies suggests that similar pressures are applied to other African heads of state. The criticism faced by the AES from within Africa often comes from leaders who have failed to challenge Western dominance and instead rely on foreign aid and loans to prop up their regimes. For example, Ivory Coast, under President Alassane Ouattara, has been accused of aligning with French interests and serving as a base for anti-Traoré plots. Nigeria, a regional powerhouse and ECOWAS leader, has drawn ire for its role in threatening military action against Niger, a move seen as serving US and French interests. These leaders, and others like them, are increasingly viewed as out of touch with the aspirations of their people, who are rallying behind the AES's vision of sovereignty and self-reliance. The AES's success has also sparked envy and animosity among African leaders who fear being overshadowed by the youthful, dynamic trio of Traoré, Goïta and Tiani. Social media platforms like X are abuzz with sentiments that these leaders are doing what others have failed to do in decades, reclaiming Africa's resources, rejecting foreign interference, and uniting for a common cause. This groundswell of support has put pressure on ECOWAS and AU leaders to reconsider their approach, but their entrenched interests and reliance on Western patronage make meaningful change unlikely. At the heart of Traoré's speech was a powerful message of self-reliance. Africa can develop without the suffocating grip of Western loans and aid. Burkina Faso is not poor, he asserted. We are a very rich country, and that is our major problem. They don't want us to realize that we are rich and to be able to exploit our wealth. And beyond Burkina Faso, the entire Sahel is rich, immensely rich, and I know that you all know that. The Sahel will not remain poor. The AES countries are proving this vision through concrete actions. Burkina Faso's nationalization of gold mines and construction of a refinery are part of a broader strategy to retain the value of its resources domestically. Mali has similarly tightened control over its mining sector, while Niger has leveraged its uranium and oil resources to secure favorable deals with non-Western partners like Russia and Iran. These efforts have already yielded results. Burkina Faso's GDP grew by 5.494% in 2024, Mali by 3.751%, and Niger by an impressive 9.869%. By rejecting IMF and World Bank loans, the AES is breaking the cycle of debt dependency that has crippled African economies for decades. Traoré's government has instead invested in domestic agriculture, infrastructure, and security, using revenues from mineral exports to fund development. Initiatives like the distribution of farm machinery, the construction of rural roads, and the establishment of a state-owned mining firm are empowering local communities and reducing reliance on foreign aid. This model poses a direct threat to the West, which has profited immensely from Africa's debt and resource extraction. The CFA franc, for instance, ensures that West African countries deposit 50% of their foreign exchange reserves in the French treasury, giving Paris control over their monetary policy. The AES's push for a new currency and a common central bank aims to dismantle this system, freeing the Sahel from France's economic stranglehold. Such moves are seen as a dangerous precedent, inspiring other African nations to question their own economic ties with the West. Traoré's speech was not just a rallying cry for Burkina Faso, it was a manifesto for a new Africa. His words have resonated far beyond the Sahel, inspiring a global movement of solidarity. Rallies in support of Traoré have been held in cities as diverse as Accra, London, Paris, and Montego Bay, with thousands chanting his name and waving the flags of the AES. On social media, Traoré has become a digital icon, with AI-generated images and videos portraying him as a modern-day Sankara, leading Africa to liberation. This groundswell of support reflects a broader awakening among Africa's youth, who see in Traoré a leader who speaks their language and shares their frustrations. His anti-imperialist rhetoric, coupled with tangible achievements, has made him a beacon of hope in a continent weary of empty promises. As one ex-user put it, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has shown the world what true decolonization means, not just changing flags but reclaiming control over our land, our gold, and our future. But Traoré's vision is not without its challenges. The AES faces formidable enemies, both external and internal. The ongoing jihadist insurgencies, which have killed thousands and displaced millions in the Sahel, remain a significant hurdle. Critics argue that Traoré's focus on sovereignty has come at the cost of democratic freedoms, with restrictions on free speech and protests drawing condemnation from Western media. Yet, for many Burkinabe, these trade-offs are a necessary sacrifice in a country at war with both terrorism and imperialism. A 2023 Afrobarometer survey found that 66% of Burkinabe support military rule, a sharp increase from 24% in 2012, reflecting broad approval of Traoré's leadership. Traoré's speech was more than a revelation of imperialist threats. It was a call to action for Africa to rise and reclaim its destiny. "We must come out of this war very strong," he urged. "Understand why we have been assaulted so much, forge ourselves, and ensure that in the decades and centuries to come, we do not experience these kinds of situations." His vision of a united, prosperous Sahel, built on the strength of its people and the wealth of its resources, is a direct challenge to the status quo that has kept Africa subjugated for centuries. The AES's success will depend on its ability to weather the storms ahead. Coup attempts, assassination plots, economic sabotage, and military threats. But Traoré's unwavering resolve, backed by the solidarity of Mali and Niger, has already proven that the Confederation is no mere experiment. It is a movement, a revolution, and a testament to the power of African unity. As the flags of the AES flutter proudly in Ouagadougou, Bamako, and Niamey, they symbolize more than a new confederation. They represent the dawn of a new era, an era where Africa's riches benefit its people, where its leaders stand tall against imperialist bullying, and where the dreams of Sankara, Nkrumah, and Lumumba are finally realized. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has thrown down the gauntlet, and the world is watching. The Sahel will not remain poor, and Africa will not remain divided. The time for unity is now, and the AES is leading the charge.